grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Well, hello. It's been a while since we've had one of these review roundup episodes. And Birdman had told me he wanted to get some out. He's got a few reviews that he's going to be including in this. And I have not so much reviews as I have some products that I want to feature. Think of this as like almost a Black Friday, something to keep your eye out for Black Friday or guides. Some of these items basically are things that we're going to feature on our gift guide when it comes out in the beginning of December, but also for anybody that is going to be looking for Black Friday deals or even just in general shopping before then. Wanted to make sure we highlighted some of these. And I'm just going to, instead of having them in multiple segments, we'll have, after I talk with all these little products here, we'll have some reviewers or two from Birdman to include, and then I'll come back at the end just to sort of wrap up. But as it stands, this is sort of going to be a free-flowing, just very quick discussion of some of the products that we want to feature. Then we'll include links in our show notes to every item that I talk about here. And then obviously we'll probably talk a little more about them when we do our gift guide so that we can bounce back and forth. And at that point, Birdman and I will have a chance to have checked out and tried some of these items. But I'm going to mention right now, just off the top here, our friends over at PDP Games sent over a couple of controllers for the Xbox. And I'm just going to pull up here. It's the Afterglow, what they call their Wave controller, which is they have a black one and they have a white one. And what this does is it's basically like fancier like light up LEDs around everything. Very, very neat, actually. Now these are wired controllers that you can just attach the controller from, or sorry, the cable from for storage, and similar in at least function to some of the controllers we have reviewed from them in the past. The difference here is this is obviously made for Series S and X. It will work on PC as well, and it has that upload button, that extra button that they added when the Series S and X came out. And also within the box itself, it comes with a voucher code for 1 month of Game Pass, which is pretty darn sweet that they're actually including that. It's kind of something that I think it's being marketed and it's perfect for the holidays, where it's like maybe you're getting a system for the first time, or you're getting somebody a game, and here's a controller and you get Game Pass with it. So that's pretty neat. And again, it comes in a couple different colors. I'll put links up for it here. Functionally, solidly built controller. Not overly heavy, not overly light. If you're looking for just an extra controller to pop in for the system itself, because like somebody like myself, where I have a couple official controllers and I've got an elite controller, I always like having one or two of these guys ready to go if I do have more company over and I'm gonna have multiplayer games that we're popping on, especially on Game Pass, where we're picking up more indie titles. Also, I think its best use is probably as a wired controller on your PC that you can just have to sort of go with your fancy LED setup, and you just want something you can plug in and go and have like zero latency. it's a good option for that for sure. Now, outside of those, some of the other items we've received for, or at least I've received for the gift guide or consideration that I would consider being pretty good. Maybe not something that we were going to have a full review for, is New Tales of the Borderlands. Now, that is a continuation of the Tales from the Borderlands series, or the Telltale style of games. And I've been playing a bit through it, and I've had a pretty good time with it. It's all going to depend, obviously, on the type of sense of humor that you like. If you like the Borderlands style sense of humor, you're in for a treat. It's a big visual upgrade over the previous games in that whole style of game, actually. It's also one where when you play it on modern consoles, like a next-gen console, they have found a way to shrink the game down significantly, so it's a lot easier of a download for somebody who maybe doesn't have as good of an internet connection, or you've got data cap limits. So that's something to consider if you do have a next-gen, or I guess now it's considered current-gen console. It might be worth picking up. Pretty fun. Tons and tons and tons and tons of accessibility options, to the point where you can make it more so, not that it plays itself, but you can make it so that you can't really fail if you want to do that, and just sort of experience it as more of like a visual novel where there's not really any risk to not pressing the buttons at the right time. So there's tons of customizability options and UI options for larger, colorblind, everything, descriptive video, all that sort of stuff. Very, very well done there, and that's something that you might want to consider picking up. As far as anything else is concerned here, we've also received some interesting toys that are connected to Rocket League. There's some Rocket League cars, a lot of licensed products that are coming out that look pretty neat, and we'll probably feature that in the gift guide as well, and I'll put a link in the show for this. Outside of that, we've also been had a chance now that just recently received some Access Plus board games, which we had talked briefly about, I believe, a few months ago, that that was a line that was coming from Asmodee, and we will, in the next couple of weeks, I believe, knock on wood, as long as everything works out, have a chance to talk to someone over there about what this means, bringing these product lines out. And it's the idea is opening the games up to a wider audience, breaking down any borders and difficulties some people might have playing a traditional board game. So before we do that interview, or before we even promote it, we want to make sure that I'm going to check out the board games themselves and show off sort of what makes them special. So I just want to make sure I put a link in here, because that's something that you might not have considered, that my kid, or I have a family member or somebody that isn't able to play a traditional game without modifying it. Well, here's a company that's out there making versions that are accessible to people. So that's kind of neat. So I'll make sure I put a link in the show for that as well. As there are some other items that have been coming in. Let's see here, because there's a couple that are sort of in transit still. Oh yes, that might be more of a review later on. That's actually probably it, that as far as I can talk about at the moment. There's some other stuff that I actually have to work on, but yeah, so there's some interesting stuff. There's some toys, there's some games, there is a couple other products that I think are actually in transit, and if they come in before Black Friday, I'll make sure that I talk about them on the show going into that. But that's sort of what's up, what's something to keep an eye out for when it comes to those items. As far as anything else from Birdman, I think he says at the time of this recording he's got 2 or 3 items he wants to talk about, and he's going to send me reviews for that. I'll put in the show here as well, and I'll do that right now, and then we'll come back at the end and I'll give sort of a bit of an update on what's going on programming wise on the site.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager. and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman, otherwise known as Spartan260, and I'm talking about one of the latest 4K releases from Paramount Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the Halo television series Season 1 on 4K Ultra HD. So this is a series that has been highly anticipated since, well, pretty much they talked about the project in like the early 2000s, when this was going to be a movie, then it was going to be a show, then it just kind of languished in development hell, and then somehow ended up on Paramount Plus. And well, what we got was, well, to say something divisive, to say the very least. I used to hang out a lot on the Halo subreddit, and well, some people liked it, myself included. Other people, well, they did not. We'll just say about as divisive as Halo 5 Guardians, if we're going to be putting that a little bit kind of lightly. But that's not to say that everything here is all necessarily bad. So let's get this straight out of the way. Is this a straight up adaptation of the Halo canon you know and love? No. This is something that is known as the Silver Timeline. Something that sort of amalgamates things from the video games, comic books, novels, and associated media, and gives you its own unique spin on John 117's storyline through the UNSC, involving a lot of tertiary characters. Some of them have been changed, had their roles changed, like Miranda Keyes is now a scientist. Jacob Keyes and Dr. Halsey are a thing, and I haven't read enough Halo media to tell you that, because I've only read a couple of the comic books, and I mostly read the ODST stuff, because that's sort of my jam. And I did get a chance to preview this series as a member of the media. I was able to watch most episodes a couple of days early, so I knew how things were going to shake out. And well, I have divided opinions on this. There are times where I think this show took some pretty ballsy moves, and episode 5 being a particular highlight, because it really felt like Halo in those last couple of minutes, with Kai, Vanek, and Riz and the Master Chief, you know, using a Warthog. We got people using Needlers. We got Jackals with like energy swords, which is, I didn't think that was a thing. A Brute shows up and hits Chief with a Grav Hammer. You get Spirits, you get Phantoms, you get everything, right? And that's what a lot of people were expecting. They thought we'd get a straight-up adaptation of the Halo video game. And instead you get more of a political drama that happens to have Spartans in it, and a Covenant mole, I guess you could say. And like I said, there are some times where things look really good. Like, I think the costume design in this is fantastic. I don't know how I feel about some of the props, if I really had to be nitpicky. I mean, even like some of the assault weapons look kind of weirdly goofy. Like, I'm not a big fan of the typical Halo assault rifle, but the battle rifle looks great. The sniper rifle looks great. The Magnum looks great. The Covenant weaponry, they actually managed to make the plasma pistol, being from one of the most annoying weapons you can pick up in the game, to looking somewhat effective and pretty powerful in the hands of the right enemy. Jackals, Grunts, Brutes, Elites, even like a Hunter, kind of. It looks pretty cool, right? But the story, it's all over the place. And while having Jen Taylor as Cortana is wonderful, it's a little bit jarring to have Porn Stash from Orange is the New Black as Master Chief. And it's not that he does a bad job. Actually, I think he does pretty good in the role. It's just weird not to hear Steve Downes, or I don't know. I mean, come to think of it, I've met two Master Chiefs. I've met Daniel Cudmore, who played it in the Halo special that detailed them rescuing a bunch of students at an academy. I can't remember what it was called, but he played Colossus in the X-Men movies. And I've talked with Steve Downes, who's done promos for Twig before. So the series itself, in 4K looks pretty good. Like, you can really make out a lot of really cool kind of details. That's pretty wonderful. It sounds fantastic. Wicked. Happy with the presentation. To talk about the special features, each episode has these things called Halo Declassified, and each of them is between 20 and 30 minutes. There'll be an interview from someone with the cast, then they'll do something with the fans. Might be a celebrity fan, like, say, Adam Cole. They might interview a composer or someone who works on the storyboards. And the one that I really liked, and I really wish they drew this out, is they did something with a military advisor who I'm guessing is maybe former British Army, maybe he's SAS, I don't know. He's a military advisor. See, I wanted to know more about that. I wanted to know more about the props, and we only got little snippets, like a couple of minutes here and there. And I don't know, I wanted more, and I really wish that each Halo Declassified was at least 40 minutes. Give me 20 minutes of an interview, and most of them are pretty interesting, but I wanted more. And I think that's my biggest complaint here, is I wanted more. So the final verdict on this is, if you want to see the series, I might recommend checking out Paramount Plus first and seeing what you think of the 9 episodes at your leisure. If you really like what you see, then I don't think stepping out and getting this 4K set is the worst decision in the world. Season 2 has already been filmed, or it's already been greenlit or something. Either way, it's happening. You can't stop it. So I'm really hoping things change in Season 2. And if I did have to share one more personal note, I'm really surprised Microsoft and 343 didn't do something as something extra for the fans of Halo Infinite, like maybe give us Silver Team armor cores, where if you bought this particular box set, you could get in Halo Infinite, or give me Vanek, Riz's, and Kai's helmets. That would have been cool, because when Halo the series came out, you could get Silver Team stuff. You could even get the Keystone as a weapon charm, but not armor cores, and that's something I would have liked, but we didn't get, and that seems like a no-brainer. But hey, I'm not the guy in charge of marketing or branding. What do I know? I'm just some schmuck on the internet. So my final recommendation for this, if you are a Halo superfan, if you can rattle off all the members of Master Chief's Blue Team and tell me what helmets they were wearing, you might be a little upset. But if you're a new fan to Halo and you want to know a different spin where you're not being held down by 20 years of canon, then this isn't a terrible entry point. But I am going to recommend you watch this series on Paramount Plus first. And if you're committed to it, then consider signing up with the UNSC. Maybe contact your local recruitment office, and maybe you too can join the Spartan program.
Basically, he was a geek, sir.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk to you about something that I got for review from Paramount Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the release of That's So Fetch, the Mean Girls Steelbook on Blu-ray and digital code. This is something of kind of a strange release for me, because I don't get too many Steelbooks. It's not something that I typically go after. So I thought this would be some kind of amazing upgrade to the Mean Girls, previous discs that we've seen before in the past. And well, it's kind of not, and that kind of sucks. This is basically the same disc that's been released for a little while. I mean, like, you've still got these same special features on it. You've got the commentary by director Mark Waters, the commentary with Tina Fey and producer Lauren Michaels. There's like a couple of different featurettes that aren't necessarily the longest or most interesting thing in the world. There's the blooper reel, there's some deleted scenes, and ultimately this is the same disc you've all kind of heard before. But it's okay if I had to say anything about it. I mean, the fact that the packaging is so attractive. I mean, if you're into steelbook presentations, This looks like the burn book from the movie, which I think is actually pretty funny. I mean, and for those of you that don't know what Mean Girls is about, and this movie's been around since like the early 2000s, back when Lindsay Lohan was at the height of her career, and when I had a huge crush on her. Basically, she's been living in Africa for a number of years. She comes back to the United States. She runs into a group of girls known as the Plastics, tries to destroy them from within, and things don't exactly go to plan. And I decided to ask for this movie for review because I was really excited to see the musical that is down in Toronto, which I'm still waiting on to get tickets to, or if it's even still around. But the big reason to upgrade to this version is not because it's got any new razzle-dazzle to it, because it really doesn't. The packaging as a steelbook is really worth upgrading to, if that is your jam, if you're a steelbook collector. If you do not own this, or if you know someone who's a particularly big Mean Girls fan who would like an upgrade, hey man, the holidays are just around the corner. It's not a bad stocking stuffer at that price. But yeah, the main reason to go after this is the steelbook presentation. It's the same song as before, while still great, but I'm pretty sure you've heard this one before. Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk about something really cool that my wife and I had a chance to explore, and this is the latest cookbook coming to us from Insight Editions. This is My Pokémon Cookbook by Victoria Rosenthal. Now, we actually did take a look at one of her cookbooks a number of years ago before my wife and I had bariatric surgery, so this is going to be a bit of a culinary adventure for us both, as now our diets and quite literally our biology has changed. You might say we've evolved using Unova stones, or in my case, probably a sunstone because I'm like an Eevee or something. I don't know. I only play Pokemon Go. I'm only just getting back into the console games. Please forgive me. Anyway, I digress. So what this is about 125 pages of different recipes themed around different Pokemon, going all the way from the Kanto region, Johto, etc., and, you know, stuff that you've definitely seen, and I want to say probably even as late as like Sword and Shield, but then again, I'm not that far in that game, so I can't completely tell you. But we did have a chance to try out a number of different recipes, and the two ones that you've probably seen on our socials, either on TikTok or on my personal Twitter and probably the Facebook page, is we made Spinda Raspberry Marble Cake, and we also made Daramaka Tomato Soup. And as of this recording, we are going to be making Executor Tropical Slushy, probably not too long after I turn off the microphone, because I'm sick right now, and something cold on my throat would be something really, really fantastic. So one of the cool things that this cookbook does is actually divides the Pokemon up into regions. So if you want to cook exclusively Kanto recipes, you can do that. You want to cook something from the Hoenn region, you can do that. However, though, there are some caveats with this. I would say this cookbook requires an intermediate skill. This isn't as easily as accessible as, say, the Ghostbusters cookbook was, or even the Fallout cookbook from a number of years back, as you are going to require some different cooking implements that your normal kitchen may not necessarily have. Like, for example, do you have a bamboo steam basket? I'm going to guess not. But that also means you're probably going to have to go to some local ethnic grocery store. So you might have to go to your local Asian or ethnic market to pick up some very specialty items for some of these. Another thing that's probably, this may be a bit of a critique, is some of the recipes seemed more like they're just going to look like the Pokemon. Like there's a Pancham recipe in here, and that's more dependent upon your artistic skill than anything else, I feel. But that's I guess a minor gripe at best. But the two ones, like I said, we did really get a chance to really dig into. We were able to modify and make workable for our diets. And I think that's something really cool, is that there's a lot of leeway within these recipes that you actually can go out and do that. So we're going to talk about the spinned up raspberry marble cake, and it was really cool. So my wife made it with sugar-free material, and she also made it dye-free, mostly because she's allergic to it. So that worked out really cool. Now, it would have been neat to see the marbling effect, because my wife does have that level of cooking skill, but maybe she'll make one for me for Christmas or something. This cake was tremendously moist. It was fantastic. Like, it was really, really delicious, and I was pleasantly surprised how well it actually turned out. And you can actually turn this cake into mini loaves, so if you happen to get this book before, the holidays hit, I could see this being a big hit for certain kind of Christmas parties. I'm just saying. Now, this was the biggest hit for me. I am a ridiculously huge fan of tomato soup. So one of my favorite Pokemon in Pokemon Go is Darumaka, who is also one of the top fire-type raid attackers. Thank you, Pokédaxi, for that wonderful little bit of information. So this is a very satisfying and super flavorful soup. It's got like a ridiculous amount of roasted garlic, and considering me and my wife right now are getting over something not unlike COVID, I think it's called RSV, this actually helped, and I'm pretty sure any vampires in the local region will not be coming to haunt me anytime soon. The cheddar croutons were an amazingly nice touch to this and added just the right amount of crunch to it, and it was just delicious in ways I can't even begin to describe. It's also really simple. It's low carb. I don't know whether I'd call it healthy, but I'm definitely going to say it's definitely not bad for you. And you can modify this recipe to be dairy-free or completely vegan. You can do that. So our verdict on the My Pokemon Cookbook coming to us from Inside Editions is you're going to need skill for this. You're going to need a budget for this. This is not as easily accessible as, say, the Ghostbusters cookbook, or even something like the Fallout cookbook, which I felt maybe maybe one step below this in terms of price, meaning it was easier to get materials for it. This one, you are going to need a lot of specialty items. You're going to need stuff around your kitchen that you're probably going to have to order from Amazon, or maybe even a specialty cook store. So anyway, I'm going to recommend this book to people who are feeling really adventurous, people who have a certain degree of artistic skill in the kitchen, but I think no matter what, you're going to want to try them all, and that's my recommendation for Pokemon, My Pokemon Cookbook by Victoria Rosenthal by Inside Edition.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk to you about something really cool that I got for review from Paramount Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the 4K Ultra HD release with a digital code. This is the 30th anniversary of Wayne's World. What more can be said about this iconic Saturday Night Live movie that has already been said? If you've been listening to the show over a number of years, and if your memory's just that good, I've got a bit of a history of this movie. It was one of those movies that really captured my imagination as a child. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Me and my biological mom, when she was alive, used to quote this movie at each other back and forth all the time. If you hang out with me in real life, I most often say, hey man, party on, more often than I probably should. And that's just my way of honoring this Mike Myers classic. So, the movie, it's fantastic. It's 30 years old. I hope you've seen it by now. Long story short, the movie is about Wayne Campbell and his friend Garth in Aurora, Illinois. And they have their own cable access TV show. Enter Rob Lowe, this slimy TV producer who wants to take over the show, basically exploit these guys to the moon and back. There's Tia Carrere, she's the singer Cassandra. Shenanigans ensue, Scooby-Doo endling, doodaloo, doodaloo, swing. You get the whole shtick. I hope you've seen this movie. Now, all archival special features, as far as I know anyway. You get a commentary, you get something called Extreme Close-Up, which is about a 20-minute-ish making of. Not too bad, the original theatrical trailer. But the main reason to pick this up, it's in 4K, and it does have a new sound mix, as far as I can understand to it. And I was watching it tonight, and I thought my smart speaker was talking to me, because during the singing scene of Bohemian Rhapsody, I heard something out of the back channel, and my smart speaker is behind me and to my left, and I thought it was my smart speaker going off. Like, no, that's a new channel, and I was wondering if Mike Myers was somehow controlling my house. So that was kind of strange. Other notable scenes include anything with Cassandra where she's singing. The scene in the music store where Garth starts the drum sounds really, really fantastic. And something else that I noticed, because this is in 4K, it's just the little things that you notice. There's a scene where Garth's dog comes in and wakes him up one morning after they've made the deal with Benjamin. I didn't notice the dog had spike bracelets on, and I've just never noticed that for like 30 years. Plus, I could really get a look at some of the set design in this movie. Really quite impressive, and definitely a love letter to that unique era between the late 80s and the early 1990s. This movie was my mother in a lot of ways. This movie was my mom, Kim, probably why we connected so well. So, is this movie worth picking up? Well, yes and no. Yes, the movie looks great on 4K, sounds amazing in the new sound mix. I want to say it's Dolby Atmos, but don't quote me on that. I think this should have been a 4K 2-pack and maybe charge a little bit more. If you could have given me both Wayne's World movies in 4K with new sound mixes at $40, yeah, sure. I think that's a pretty easy slam dunk. But I want to say this retails for about $25, I think is the suggested retail price for that. And it's essentially the same Wayne's World disc we've been picking up over the last couple of years. I don't know, at least in my opinion, I think it's maybe a bit of a hard sell, maybe the digital code. But out of the two Wayne's World movies, this is the better one, in my opinion. Yeah, it doesn't have Robert Patrick as the T-1000, but what are you going to do? So yeah, ultimately, my recommendation on this, it's going to depend on how big of a fan you are, whether you want to take a trip down to Aurora, Illinois, or whether you are indeed going to hurl.
Those magnificent bastards!
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for this very short, very quick show. We have a fair amount of stuff coming up on the site. Obviously, new episodes of Earth vs. Soup coming out every Thursday, hopefully at 7 a.m. Sometimes might be later. We are having some issues with the automation process that we usually use on our pod host connecting to our website. Basically, normally you could schedule, let's say 15 or 20 shows at a time if you wanted to, and manually go in, get your show post created for the website, and then have it linked to the pod host, and then have them both go live at the same time. What's happening is you can schedule it on the pod host, and then when you go to do it on the website, it will say no such file or no such episode exists because the pod host did something on their back end that no longer communicates with any of the major podcasting blog plugins that are available. I've tried a few now in the back end on a test site, and they don't work. It's probably some security thing. So I can create all these scheduled posts, but I can't schedule them to automatically release until what I have to do is go in after it's already been out on the pod host, and then it will verify that the file exists, and then I can click submit and do it. So it just means that you might wake up to having the shows already on your podcast device, but if your main method of listening or seeing is through our website or through I believe YouTube and maybe another syndicated platform that might go through the website itself, then it just goes whenever I'm awake or I'm ready to do that. But for 95% of you, it's already available. It's something on our end that might be painful, and I might have missed. It's been a couple times now where I forgot to submit, so it came out a little late. Whoopsies, sorry. Outside of that, we are in talks internally with the rest of the Trig crew about getting together for some more prototypes, because we want to make that a little more consistent as we get towards the Game Awards. We're going to have an episode, maybe two, on the history of the Game Awards, where we're going to we're not going to go live and watch with you, but we're going to watch in the background and catch up and have our thoughts on the Game Awards back when it was run by Spike, or when it was shown by Spike, presented by, and then all of the Game Awards post that lead up into this year's show. Just sort of our thoughts as a whole on it, and what was interesting is seeing the evolution of it. We are also going to have, I'm not sure when that's going to drop, it might have already dropped, a prototype discussion on the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 between Birdman and myself. We are going to have new episodes of Loose Cannon. We're going to do one on Weird Al movie, specifically UHF, and the new the Al Yankovic story movie that just came out. So that we're going to have that together as an episode. I have a couple ideas on, I don't want to necessarily say them out loud, but I have 2 episodes that I've got planned that I'm going to be sharing with the fellas and see what they think. Birdman has another idea there, I believe, as well. So we've got probably 3 or 4 episodes of that we're going to have recorded that will stagger out until going into the holiday season, and maybe even during our break. We are going to also finally get together to record our thoughts on all of the Star Trek shows that have aired in the summer. We might have to condense them into 1 or 2 episodes and just do our brief thoughts on them instead of doing full reviews, because Birdman has taken a long time to catch up. He still, I don't believe, has seen every episode he needs to see for us to fully discuss all of that. But as he finishes schoolwork and gets a lot of other stuff squared away, he said he's going to set away some time to watch that, so we can get together with the rest of the boys and discuss and close out the year with some Future Imperfect discussions, and maybe have 1 or 2 that are not related to Star Trek in there as well. And I'm not sure about Sunday Funnies yet. I know it's just a matter of Birdman working with JT on that, and I'm sure we'll have something in there, some special in there before the end of the year, before we go on our hiatus. But those are all the secondary shows. We're still going to have regular shows leading up to the week of the 10th of December, when we finish off with our regular weekly shows, and then we'll have a few sporadic review shows in between, maybe a Christmas special in there, as well as a prototype nearing middle of December to discuss the Game Awards and our picks of what's coming up in the future, what we think is going to be great going into 2023. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff on the rolling right now. We're just figuring out everything, but it looks like we're going to have some pretty consistent, at least 2 to 3 episodes of different things per week leading into the middle of January. It's going to be fun. It'll be nice to get back to the regular programming schedule with everybody. It's been an interesting 5 or 6 months where it's been sort of off between Birdman, myself, and everybody else. But it's going to be quite a good end of the year and beginning of 2023. Knock on wood. Hopefully everything's fine. We'll be back at the end of this week, beginning of next week, with a brand new show. I'm sure Birdman and I will have something stupid to talk about then. So until then, I guess stay safe and stay warm. It's starting to get chilly outside.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.